First of all, I want to say thanks to Marco for inviting me here and to organize this nice and interesting talk workshop. And and I would like to thanks as well my colleague Elisa Brener that is also in between the speakers and to have help in preparing all this material that I'm going to show you now. So first of all, I would like to, of course, like my title, it's I guess it's pretty clear, but I would like to start by showing a little bit our background, which consists in like giving you a little bit of overview of our works, through which it's easier like to motivate why I'm talking about like the concept of going a little bit beyond and also like the advantage that I think technology gave at least to the field of digital epigraphy or epigraphic studies so far. Um, First of all, can you hear me? Yes. This is like something that Yale has been founding since a long time, and moving like from different region and different area in Egypt, and the epigraphic study, the studies on rock art and inscription, was also carry on like afterwards by different expeditions that they've been also funded or like as a joint project by Yale. One of these expedition is the Swan Comombo Archaeological Project, which also include our colleagues Antonio and Maria Carmela Gatto. And the other one is also another expeditions by Yale University, directed by John Darnell, and both expeditions are kind of parallelly developing and moving forward in in these perspectives. So just to I will be like kind of quick in showing you all this in like overview, because we don't have much time, and I know myself, I'm always like late. And so, but I just wanted to give you a sense of like the areas that we are studying. And these are basically going along the Nile Valley and from basically touching the eastern and western desert, from basically the Kena band, so the Thebes, the modern Luxor, until the dam in Aswan, and a little bit beyond that, and also in the past and hopefully in the future as well. We're working on that, back to the Western desert and the oasis. So a very quick slideshow just to show you what's the typology of our sites, taken from this region, just to have an idea of the geomorphological context where the rock art is sitting on. As you can see, we are passing from very rocky outcrop to desertic landscapes. Very close to cultivation, which is a problem, and modern infrastructures, and as well, like as I can show you a little bit of the typology of the most common typology of our rock art and inscriptions, which are mostly petroglyphs. So we have very, very few cases of painted inscriptions. So that's why just to not go too much into different topics, I didn't put them, and I just want to focus on the petroglyph, which are mostly incised and peck marked on the rock surface. Some of them they are pretty visible. Others are like less visible, very sketchy, different periods and areas um, and languages. Um, and as you can see, there are many different types. These are an example of pack-marked animals from early dynastic period, and so on. Most of them are really, really well done. And as I will tell you in a little bit, this will connect also to another problems that we are having all over Egypt, which is the preservation of these sites, which are really under threat since several years, unfortunately. And but I will show you later more in detail. Our research flow is just one slide just to show you like what we are doing, like from the beginning to the end of our research. Like, so when we approach a site, a rock art site, an inscription site, that's basically what we do. So from, when we found that, how do we record that until all the way to publishing, and which is the point where like our presentations is focusing a little bit more. Very quickly, our recording method is to link to something that you all like mostly touched already, like in terms of techniques that have been used. I'm sure that nothing is new, but I'll be happy, of course, to answer questions later, especially in the topic of like thinking about the possible standardization of these technologies that are applied. One of the most important things that is into our methodology is the efforts of not disconnect, as it was happening more in the past, the rock art itself, so the inscriptions from their landscape, from their geomorphological contents. This is very important because we are passing, thanks to this, to like a more modern way to study these fields, which anyway is a sort of niche fields of archaeology. And in the past was more interested in like was mostly focusing in the iconographical aspects, which instead today try to, of course, connect to the territory, because of course the connections with the local cultures and the distribution on the ancient landscape was not random. So there were a lot of meaning for that, and so that's why we try to preserve that. Of course, this put ourselves in front of how to document such of differentiations of subject. One is like a small panel, like a few centimeters or a meter large, and the other things are basically like entire mountains or entire wadis, like canyons. And I have to say that until a certain dimension, we had no problems just to keep using our technology, like cameras and telescopic pole, which now can be very tall as well, and can cover like a site like this little outcrop over here, which is like a couple of 100 meters in surface. But of course, at a certain point, this is not possible anymore. And this is some help that we were using. And I'm putting that because Marco is with me over there trying to scan this very steep first face of rock. And of course, why we picked this adventure way to take photograph, because the next part I'm going to show you, unfortunately, which is very exciting and which we love to continue using, but since 2016 is not possible anymore to be employed on site. because the Egyptian government banned, and still today is ongoing, this ban of UAV vehicles. And this gave us a little bit of experience to do, but of course, mostly this is a disadvantage for the preservation of these sites, which, as I told you before, unfortunately, they keep being destroyed for several reasons, for like the growing of modern infrastructures, or like any other type of unlucky event that destroy cultural heritage in the country. But this is important because anyway is connecting to an effort that we of course since the beginning of our experience tried to make in keeping a record of all these sites, not only in terms of locations and dimension or like information, but also in terms of like preservation and monitoring. And but we have seen, I will not focus much on this aspect today, because we are focusing more like in the visual aspects of the documentation. But definitely, I have to say that thanks to the new technology and accessibility to that, it's also becoming easier to move from just a regular use of mapping and GIS toward instead of the management of 3D data. So using 3D GIS, which are very helpful, of course, to keep connected the graphic features and the iconography itself to the landscape, also in a more like scientific manner. Excuse me. And so continue like briefly, this is so that was the landscape. How do we deal with the landscape and big areas? And of course, we have like a more specific pipeline to document the panels, so in like the high definition, because that we need to really be careful in order to see and detect what we're doing. Here is again Marco that is helping us. In one example on the left, it can show a lot of our rock inscription. They are visible and they need an attention in using lights. And in the other example on the right, instead, there are other type of surfaces that instead they are making rock are popping up without light. And so that was very important to us in order to select our tools and procedures in the acquisition part on site, in order not to lose information and announce what we were recording. Because after that, of course, we had to process these data in order to use that. And one of the important aspects I want to underline here is that other colleagues and other like brands, let's say, of digital epigraphy, they are using raster graphics in order to perform observations and tracings, so to do to process like the rock art itself and inscriptions. But we opted, at least for us, and we found this very helpful, very interesting, to keep using vectors. And that's why I put here some example of the tools we are using. One is the iPad with the pen, and the other one is this application that works for Apple, unfortunately, only, that is called Graphic by Autodesk. Very, very interesting, especially works very well on mobile devices. Um, this was essential, of course, when the use of plastic was banned by the Cultural Heritage Office in the Office of the Antiquities in Egypt. And so we had to step forward. And I would say like because of like on this, we only found honestly advantages by passing completely to digital, not only for preservation, as you can see here on the left, we were really literally sleeping on the surface, and they were covered partly by this kind of refractive like surface that was occultating a little bit the visibility of what we were doing, versus like a way more neat and clean, even though not all the time like very, very simple, but effective way to keep documenting inscriptions. This is how the software works, very briefly. So of course, because it allows like to separate in layers, now we can reach the same basically results of when plastic were scanned, and a lot of effort in order to use them, just by simply adding drawing on our screen and dividing things, so we can basically keep different phases and palimpsests like this one separated and ready to be exported and create layouts like the one I'm going to show you now here, which can be simple layouts like this one, like ortho images and simple drawings, followed by more appealing 3D layouts. In this case, it's the mesh with the overlay of the drawings itself. And here is that my beyond that I put in the title, because recently we are trying to deep a little bit and try to also involve CGI, so advanced computer graphic imagery, into our workflow. So, and see like, okay, we are having so much 3D data. So what can we do with all that? Can this be used in order to help a little bit, not only the researchers, but also like the discipline itself. Of course, here we're stepping a little bit in more technical things, but most of this, I'm sure it's already familiar to you. Of course, we're talking about textures and materials, and obviously resolution. This is an example of how just a simple 3D model coming from structure for motion, from motion, can be post-processed a little bit in order to give this sense of going there and discovering the rock. And of course, then you can edit on that any type of information, for example, where the drawings are and all your notes. Moving forward, this can also enable, a very an easier step into the publishing part, which is mostly now, oriented to be on the web. And I'm sure everybody Sketchfab. This is just an example of that, and I could step out of my presentation and show you a little bit, how it works, but there is no time. So eventually in the discussions later, I can come back and show you a little bit this. But we found a way to integrate into Sketchfab also part of the information, so not only a text, but also photographs, so that the models are more interactive and fulfilling. As I said, like all this it steps into a very big question that I'm sure I'm not the only one that I'm facing that, and is what about resolution. So how can we manage this resolution that now, of course, we can have so much accuracy, sorry, I don't want to misuse terms, even because I'm explaining this right now, but so much quality, let's say. But is that like, how can we manage all that? Is that straightforward, or we need to move around a little bit? And it is. And first of all, I wanted to put here the difference between resolution and accuracy, which are very different, but at the same time fundamental. And this connects, of course, this concept connects to the concept of multi-scale and resolution, which I will show you in a second. And I've seen other colleagues in between you have been already discussed. Resolution is important because the subject itself that you're going to record is actually the one that determine a little bit the resolution that you need. And this is, of course, is obvious, because if I have to scan an entire landscape or just a simple drawings, I cannot. I mean, you can. Now we are getting always better and better, but we still cannot really like just use the same resolution. So we are trying to adapt our recording methods, and in order to be flexible and follow what we need, and combine that afterward in order to reach our goal in like displaying and communicating that, which is the purpose here that is also driving like how can I decide the way that I want to my models to be. And of course, it's something if I need to produce just archaeological information, and other things if I just need to archive or preserve like this information digital. And also the purpose of disseminating, of course, like and publishing and even beyond, because something that we are really care about today is how to use this all this technology to for teaching and education purposes. Very quickly here, the resolution itself is, of course, is divided in two technical aspect, the resolution of the geometries, as you can see on the left. So how do I need all that resolution in my geometries? If so, why and when? And the other aspect instead is in the textures and materials, which actually are our escaping in having giant models necessarily, because we can have the same effect by tricking and using like CGI and have pretty much the same effect. So the purposes are very important, because if I have to take measurement is one thing, if I have to display on the screen, as you know, is a different things. But it takes a little bit of planning of what what we want to do, and it is important to be aware about what is your research goal. Of course, this is the like just a schema that shows like a little bit more in technical, how this resolution can be manipulated in order to be used. And this is the results, like before, like just using just like in a simple step normal resolution. This is where we are, so we can zoom here, but then at a certain point, that's it. That's where I'm getting stuck. Whereas instead, by combining these few these like technologies together, that as I said, now they are very accessible. So we don't need like the computer from the NASA anymore, or like whatever, but just simple laptop and a little bit of knowledge that can allow like this really much better results. That is not only helpful here for displaying purposes, but as you can see, I'm reaching from the general site overview to the resolution that we are using for tracing rock inscriptions. So this is a sort of nice sentence that we thought about how to present, to present over here, because we find like very connected somehow, like entangled, like the working with preservation. So using this technology to preserve, and so the sites, so to go toward the education. And so hopefully in the future, and I'm sure my colleagues that work in Egypt, they understand this, hopefully, because that's the only tool we have today. Education could be like a way to preserve our sites. That Marco, tell me if I'm already over the time. Probably yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you wrap up, please?
Yeah, so I'm just I have like few slides left. This is an example of how the application can be also applied in virtual restoration. As you can see here, we use like our 3D models in order to restore like a piece of rocks that was destroyed. And so now you can see integrate. Another example was another site from Aswan, and the site was also destroyed intentionally, and using visual reconstruction, we were able to remap and so give these aspects of the site was before, thanks to an archive photos that we found. And of course, we're moving forward toward like also how to use this to interact with people and using virtual reality and other means to disseminate. There are tons of advantages, of course. We don't have to fix this. This can be also in the discussions later. But I just want to show you the slides, even if I'm over time, because this motivates a little bit our title that was, okay, was technology able to help at least like not only archaeology, but our research in epigraphy? I think yes, we found tons of advantages of applying in a, of course, aware manner like these technologies. But these are the points that, of course, I found as a more research related that digital imaging and technology are giving us in terms of research, and especially, of course, the fact that this allows to use this technology directly on the field. So this was a big change, at least in our procedure. Our next step, of course, there are few. It's also just briefly, so this can open some question later. We are trying, of course, to move forward and start tracing directly on 3D models. And so deep a little bit into that. So far we are always exporting that in ortho images. So I have, of course, the controls of distortions and everything. But of course, we are getting there. Technologies are supporting this, and we are deeping a little bit more in way to teach using these contents, and of course for education and entertainments, and all over until try to bring these sites that cannot be moved, of course, as a part of a sort of object into museum. That's it. Thanks. Sorry if I was a little bit longer. Unfortunately, I'm not famous for my syntax, but hopefully I was clear enough, and I let Marco keep going with the talk.
Yeah.
Thank you.